How would you describe your investment philosophy?
We've got kind of three terms, three tenets to it. I think the third one's most interesting, so brace yourselves.
Nice.
The first is we're fundamental, and what that just means is when we look at a stock, we try to think about it as though we're going to buy the whole company and then hold it forever. And so we're not that fussed with exactly what the price is today or tomorrow. What we find is a lot of investors kind of playing the game of who's going to be the greater fool that they can sell a stock to, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line. We try not to engage in that. We try to approach that analysis around what a business is worth, bearing in mind as though we were going to buy the whole thing and hold it forever. The second is we're long-term. And so that just means, when we apply that fundamental lens, we assume we're going to hold the company forever. And so that means we care about the cash flows at the end of the day. And the third one, now I've built it up, so now I hope it's interesting, is that we're contrarian investors. And that means that we're looking for opportunities that others are paying less attention to, things that are neglected, things that are sometimes controversial, though we don't necessarily seek that out. I think we'd prefer apathy. But those things that others are spending far less time on, things that don't have the kind of attention on as the Magnificent Seven and some of the other very, very large stocks out there have today. That's where we tend to focus our efforts. So those three pieces, fundamental, long-term, and contrarian, kind of form how we invest, and that's true for Orbis. It's also true for Allan Gray Australia. It's also true for Allan Gray Limited.
Well, Eric, we'll dig into the investment philosophy, particularly the contrarian side, a little bit later. But just to close out in the intro to Orbis, how does that philosophy then flow down into products available for advisors here in Australia? And I guess what does that translate to in terms of performance as well?
Yeah. So we're not a firm of many strategies. We kind of want to pick our spots. There's a few things that we think we do reasonably well. And so we want to remain relatively simple as a firm and make sure that we can give those particular investment strategies the time of day. So in Australia, essentially on the Orbis side, there are 3 products that we've got available, 3 funds. The first is the Orbis Global Equity Fund. That's our flagship product. So that is actually the most important investment strategy for us as a firm, with a little bit under 60% of the total firm assets in that one investment strategy. Then we've got our Orbis Emerging Markets Fund. That one's really interesting. It's quite a unique, fascinating kind of application of the contrarian philosophy to emerging markets, which has some nuances, because I think those countries can sometimes come with their own pretty idiosyncratic risks and opportunities. And then we also have the Orbis Real Return Fund, and that one is a bit more absolute return focused with an inflation benchmark. And what we think makes that one interesting is it's got some really fascinating tools in the toolbox that are not always available elsewhere, things like hedged equities, commodities, and so on.
So Eric, I think you're being a little coy. Bryce asked about track record and you didn't want to give yourself a plug, but I'll give you the plug. Your fund, the Global Equity Fund, has beaten the benchmark since inception. I'm just looking at your website here. Net of fees, 9.6% per year compared to 9.1% for the benchmark. So we appreciate you being coy, but I'll give you the plug.